Hello everyone, welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Sean, and today I am here to talk about the news yesterday of Olivia Wilde coming on to direct, potentially, not confirmed yet, but most sources are saying, Spider-Woman in Sony's ever-expanding cinematic universe. There's also a little bit of news about them finding a director for the Craven movie as well. So Sony's moving head first with this cinematic universe, and it's beginning to be like, if you've heard me talk on this before, you know how I feel about Sony. I don't like Sony. I'm not the biggest fan of Sony. I think Sony is a waste of time. I think they're wasting all the Spider-Man's potential and villains on trying to make a what I'm looking for, like, just trying to jump into this cinematic universe thing. I think it's very clear Sony does not know how to handle the Spider-Man character, and I know every time you say those words, people just cringe and go, "Oh, but remember the Sam Raimi trilogy," or "Oh, remember Spider-Verse." And as I said many times on this channel, they ruined the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy by wanting to force more product placement and force more and tinkering with stuff and wanting to force Venom in there, and they ended up ruining that movie for Sam Raimi. They ruined the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I didn't love Amazing Spider-Man, but I thought Amazing Spider-Man was a good building block. I was like, you know what? While I don't love Amazing Spider-Man, I think this is a pretty good first step. Same feeling I had about Man of Steel. When Man of Steel came out, well, you guys know how I felt about Man of Steel when it came out, but when both of those movies came out, I basically said the same thing. I was like, good building block. Good building block. It's like, good place to start. Let's see where you go from here. And they immediately ruined it, because by the time they had already committed to doing Spider-Man, to rebooting Spider-Man, the MCU had came out with the Avengers, and everybody thought they can get in on this freaking universe action, and they tried to rush it. They tried to slingshot it. They had crazy ideas like an Aunt May movie and like stuff of that nature. Sony was they were just out of their minds. And Amazing Spider-Man 2, while it made money, it didn't make as much money as they thought it was going to make, as they projected it to make, and it's revered as one of the worst comic book films ever made. So, like, and then when you look at Into the Spider-Verse, while it is true, Into the Spider-Verse is one of the greatest comic book films ever made, potentially in the runner-up for maybe potentially in the top 5, and potentially, perhaps, if you boil down the essence of what the comic book genre is and what it's supposed to be about, and in comic books at its core, maybe Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse is the best representation of it. Spider-Verse might be the best, maybe the best comic book film of all time. But the thing is, that had very little to do with Sony. From all that I've heard, from looking at things, from hearing from Hector Navarro talk on this topic as well, Sony didn't think Spider-Verse was going to be that big of a deal. I don't know if any of you remember, but when Spider-Verse was coming out, there weren't a lot of trailers. There wasn't a lot of marketing. There wasn't a lot of marketing. It was like there was a couple trailers. There were trailers, but like it was kind of generally low key. And it's not until the movie came out that it got its fame, that it got like big time and won an Oscar, and then now Sony and other people are acting like it was always going to be that way. But people had their reservations because Sony wasn't marketing, and at the time you're just like, whatever. I guess they just whatever. But then you hear that Sony chose not to market it because they didn't think because they thought that the Emoji Movie was going to be their bankable animated film, and basically Into the Spider-Verse was just some nice little project, some nice little bone they were throwing to Lord and Miller. That's basically what it was. They had no clue that movie was going to be that good. It had no people looking over it, because why would you look over it? You don't really care about it. You pretty much declare that I care about the Emoji Movie, and they put all the budget, all their financial resources into the Emoji Movie over Spider-Verse. And when they did that just shows you right then and there that they don't know what the hell they're doing. And then, on top of it all off, they had to come in the MCU with their tails between their legs after a huge after one of the biggest leaks that an entertainment company has ever had, back in what, 2000 and, it's a while ago now. Was it 15? Was it 14? 2014, I think? Or was it 13? Back in 2013 or 14 when they had that massive leak and it was just like all over the place and everyone started speculating, what are you going to do? How are you going to reboot this Spider-Man? You screwed the pooch. You treated Andrew Garfield like crap. He's not coming back. Like, what are you going to do? And when they were so desperate and they needed someone to reform their IP because they wanted to pump out a Venom movie and they wanted to do this whole universe and they knew. Don't get it twisted. All the Sony defenders, don't get it twisted. Sony is only able to do what they can do now because they aligned themselves with the MCU. And that's the thing. There's a lot of disrespect out there. I think I've made a video about this before. But a lot of disrespect out there for the MCU and for what the MCU has done. There are people who take it for granted. There are people who look at the MCU like that shit's easy. And the thing is, Sony's only in the position they're in because of the MCU. Understand this. If Sony didn't think they needed the MCU to reform their public perception, they would have never joined the MCU. They would have kept going. They would have pumped out Venom. They would have pumped out a bunch of other things, and it would have just kept going. They needed the MCU to help their public, perception. And now that they've used the MCU to change their public perception, they think that they just know how to do a cinematic universe. In fact, like when about a year ago when Marvel and Sony were having that little tick, and nobody knew if Spider-Man was gonna. Some people were like, "Oh my God, Spider-Man's not gonna be in the MCU anymore." It was a year ago now that whole thing started actually, and it was kind of a crazy thing, and it was kind of a what's gonna happen. It was definitely a what's gonna happen situation. But back when that was happening, the CEO of freaking Sony, Sony Entertainment, just the movie side, was talking all this shit like, oh, we had success before the MCU, we didn't need them. We think we've learned everything we can about how to do a cinematic universe from Marvel. Like shit like that. Look it up. That's the kind of shit he was saying. It's a new guy. It's not Amy Pascal anymore. She stepped down. It's some new dude who's in the position. And I was just like, the hell is this dude talking about? And I loved it because it was a hyper RPG episode and Hector Navarro was just like, fuck this dude. He didn't say that, but he was just like, the hell? Who? What? Like, he did kind of give the dude the side eye, but like, it was funny because it was just like, yeah, this dude really does think like you guys really think that you wouldn't be here without us. Like, you guys really think that if you guys wouldn't have sided with Marvel, that you would have damaged the Spider-Man IP so bad, at least in terms of movies, that that perhaps you would have had to sell the damn thing because it ain't profitable anymore. You guys don't think that? You guys don't correlate the fact that the biggest Spider-Man movie you've ever made happens to take place in the MCU and have Kevin Feige as producer and have writers and staff people from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? You don't think that helped? And the thing is, both these movies, Kraven and Spider-Woman, are not gonna be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. These are Sony movies, so you gotta think Venom and Morbius when you think about these movies. It is a blatant, I'm hard to say cash grab because I've said on this channel many times too that every movie is made to make money. You don't make these movies from rainbows and bubblegum. I say that all the time when indie people and film people are like, I wish I could see this tiny little indie movie more. I was like, dude, nobody else wants to see that shit. I'm sorry. The theaters gotta freaking, pay the bills and studios got to make the money back. Why am I if I can make this huge spectacle film and make money, I'm gonna do it. So I'm not that. So I hate to really put it out there as a cash grab, but there's nothing. But Sony to me, out of all the studios, out of all of them, it just comes off like a sleazy drug dealer. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the way they come off. They just come off with these cheap gimmicks, and you got things like freaking the Men in Black franchise that they completely screwed up. They throw things out there because they think you're stupid. Venom to me was the obvious example of that. And they're just like, oh, you like superhero stuff, so we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. Why are you doing that? Do you have an actual story? No, but they eat this crap up. Sony's like living in the past. Like, I always looked at Sony like, honestly, I didn't think that we'd be at this point. I was certain, and I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I was certain about 6 months ago at least 6, maybe before me longer, that Sony would be bought by now. I was so certain that they'd be bought and that the rights would just revert back to Disney, revert back to Marvel / Disney, to Spider-Man, and I wouldn't even be thinking about this, and I'd just be like, whatever, Sony's doing whatever they're doing. But the thing is, and the thing about it is, I don't care about what Sony's doing. I truly don't. And I know I might end up titling this video like, oh, Olivia Wilde signed on to do Spider-Woman. That's great, but she's doing Spider-Woman in the Sony universe, so I gotta talk about it. And they got some guy to come in and do Craven, who I've never heard of before. So I'm just like, I don't know why they're doing all this, but whatever. They're still trying to shove this freaking cinematic universe, because apparently making a cinematic universe is easy now. Apparently making a cinematic universe is just like, you know what? I feel like doing it. Apparently the fact that the MCU is the only true cinematic universe in existence to this day. Sure, there was the Monsters movie. Sure, there are other cinematic universes, but ain't no other universe with multiple franchises inside of itself, and it is a franchise onto itself. There ain't no other thing else like the MCU, but apparently doing it's easy now. Apparently doing it is easy. Apparently doing it is easy as a breeze. But the thing that makes Sony, and the only reason I'm even upset, because when Venom was coming out, I thought it was completely separate. I was like, I'm not even thinking about it. But then the entire time Venom was coming out, they refused to clarify that it doesn't take place in the MCU. They refused to clarify. They're still refusing to clarify that. Which tells me that Sony wants to use the MCU to kickstart their own cinematic universe. They want to suck off the MCU like a motherfucking tick to help themselves. But at least a tick doesn't come with as much dickery as Sony does. At least a tick doesn't suck your blood and then talk shit to you after it falls off you like Sony does. So that's the problem with Sony, and why I don't, because they are trying to directly affect the MCU in order to prop themselves up. I've said it before. Sometimes I love Spider-Man, I love Tom Holland being in the MCU, but sometimes, some days, I do sort of wish that the MCU just let Sony flap like a dead fish on the ground with the Spider-Man IP, died, and then they just got the rights back. Sometimes I do wish that's what happened. But, anyways, I've gone on about this. I'm excited, but you know what? I'm going to end it with this. I am excited for Olivia Wilde. I haven't seen Booksmart, but I heard it's a fantastic movie. I think that's her debut movie. To be fair, the things I've seen her in is House. I pretty much, that's the thing that I know her from, is House, and I loved her in House. And she was in that movie with Justin Timberlake. I think it was like Out of Time or some shit like that. She's been in a bunch of things, but she's never really blown up as an actress the way that that I'm sure she thought she would. But apparently she's a pretty good director, so I'm happy they got her for that. I don't know that other guy who's directing Craven. I don't know his work, so I can't really talk to that. But I do know Olivia Wilde, or but I do know who she is. I've seen her in films. I've seen her in House, all of House. I've seen her in House. I've seen her in many things. So that's all I can really say on the topic. But thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. What do you think about this Sony universe? Apparently making a cinematic universe is as easy as the CEO of Sony thinks it is. Thank you guys. Have a good one.